what triggers it, but I know that my 4-year-old knows how to service men. And so the 4-year-old will be out playful with him and then feel like she will ask him like, okay, well, I'm supposed to do this now. Like, I can do this for you. And in her little 4-year-old voice, and my husband obviously can recognize it because it looks very different, you know, and he's very kind and just good-hearted character, and he never takes advantage of that. He always says, no, you know, children don't perform sexual acts. You know, I need Big Lani to be here if we're gonna do that. You know, or if I get triggered.
Somebody walks up, you know, you're working in the yard, and somebody walks up, a female, and says, thank you, I haven't had an orgasm in 6 years, and you have no idea who that person even is. Mm-hmm. And as far as you knew, the body had not been with anybody. Mm-hmm. And so it's complicated. It can be really complicated. And
okay, let's see. Well, I'm the third of 4 children, born in '67, so I'm 45 years old. Being the third child, I was born into a very chaotic lifestyle. My parents' alcoholism was in full force, and the domestic violence was rampant. We had a lot of means, so everything from the outside world, like teachers and coaches and all that, didn't notice because my mom's very good at, she's clean freak, neat freak, you know, really was good at making the appearance of everything look really well. My dad had a lot of money, so, you know, we had a cabin in the mountain, we had ski passes, so we had a lot of fun, but nights were chaotic, and lack of sleep was major. Pretty common, I think, for the 70s. Our parents they provided the food and the clothing, but there wasn't a lot of communication about anything, and
mine was different in that it was chaos from day one. The first time, so I am the 5th of 6th with an identical twin as well, and I had a younger brother who died when he was 2.5, so most of my life I was the baby. The first time I was taken from my parents and put into foster care, I was 18 months old. Finding out later that I did not have an intact hymen then, and back in those days it was always the goal to reunite the family, and so I went back and forth. It was chaos. I remember excuse me, lying in bed with my twin sister and having my father come in and put a gun to my head and tell me to get out of bed or she was going to get it. It was always me. None of the other children suffered those things the way that I did. Of course, nobody came out unscathed because just the drinking and the fighting and all of that. My mother was horribly, horribly depressed. The house was filthy all the time, and which led me to, in my own home, if anything gets out of place, I freak out. It can't be that way because I won't be like my mother. Both of my parents have passed away. My father just being this past fall. I remember thinking, like, why is it just me? You know, although I didn't wish it on either of them, you know, any of my other siblings, I remember wondering, like, why he chose me. We lived on a farm, and there were a lot of chores, and it always seemed like my chore load was, you know, incredibly high in comparison to everyone else's. The last time, excuse me, the last time I lived with my parents, I was 12, and I was pregnant with my father's baby, which I then gave birth to and put up for adoption when I was 13, and that was the last time I lived with my parents. And I remember hearing those words like, you don't ever have to go back there again, and being somehow freed a bit, but also really sad that there was never, that family portrait on the wall was never going to exist. You know, it kind of came crashing down on me.
I'm sure she already has.
Now, what do you think?
DID stands for Dissociative Identity Disorder, and it is a mental disorder thing that happens when trauma occurs at a young age, and in which your personality kind of splits into different pieces in order to protect itself. That way one part can take whatever trauma is happening and the other parts can survive. Yeah, they all have distinct personalities. She's told me about people who...
I have a part who speaks fluent German, and I have a part who plays the piano and writes music. I play the guitar, but there's lots of things that other parts have and are capable of doing that I don't have access to. One is a pretty incredible drawer, and I can't. Although I try, I can't.
Something else going on, but for us, we understand that it's the noise level in our heads. We can see, like, in our eyes and in the process, that I can tell when she's hearing probably 5, 6 different perspectives in her head and trying to pause long enough to hear it all and then bring it together to a thought that might make sense. And because talking's linear and it's frustrating, so is writing. And so when I'm writing or talking and I've got all these different perspectives, it gets really frustrating because some aren't going to get heard in a sense it's going to make sense.
And when some of them don't get heard, then you tend to miss more time, because those parts are going to get heard, whether it's through your mouth while you're present, or they're going to jump in and they're going to make their needs, wants, perspective known to whomever, and they're going to you know, and then you'll miss time, and that is a frustrating piece. That's when it becomes not as effective as an adult person living with DID.
So tell me the best things.
I don't remember things about my children growing up, and it's difficult. It's very difficult for me. My kids will say, "Remember when, Mom?" And I don't remember, and that's hard. Or they'll say, we watched that movie before. Yeah, about that. I don't remember that. Or someone will say, you ask where the clock is, and they've told you 4 or 5 times, and they're frustrated. They're like, we told you the clock is on the shelf. Well, just tell me what, you know, like don't make it a big deal, you know, and those things are hard. Photographs are especially hard for me, though. And I have photos of my twin sister and I together, and I don't know, that I like that. I have no connection to it at all, none.
Do any of you?
Yeah.
Tell me about the difficult. As a kid.
Well, it's about as difficult as someone who's really forgetful and fickle. I mean, like, because for a while before she told me, I had no idea, because I also hadn't had a different mother to experience, obviously. So, you know, it was just like, she's forgetful a lot and is kind of unclear, but that's about it. It's not, well, also, she is at a much more developed phase of this. She's gone to therapy and stuff, so she's more in control than most people are, and it's, yeah, it just kind of got explained to me when something happened, and it was just like, oh yeah, this happened. I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense than what I assumed. But
now, why do you think, help me, I think I understand, but explain why you think the DID helps you understand her forgetfulness. Why does she forget things?
Oh, well, because the way she's explained it is that the information will reach one part but not the other parts, and so when she's in the part that did not get that information, I'll have to repeat it to that part. She'll switch again, I'll have to repeat it to that part. I'm not entirely sure, there might be other reasons, but yeah, I've had to repeat things to her many times. Just
about the diagnosis?
I'm not skeptical about Lani's DID diagnosis at all. And I've been there, I was there when she was diagnosed. I was with her anyway, not in the room, but we were together as a couple-ish friends during that time. And I saw it. And when she was diagnosed, it made sense. It put a name on something that I hadn't quite put a finger on about her. We've talked about, originally I just kind of would say that she was wishy-washy. She'd say, yeah, that sounds like lots of fun, let's go do that. And then later on it's like, no, I don't like doing that. So it'd be total switches and like, okay, that's kind of weird, but then that made sense. Okay, that's what's going on.
This is great. Do you have any pictures that we could use? Just quick.
Yes,
Some of my altars
some of my altars are aware of the others. Most of them are.
Yeah. I would say my altars, in terms of who can see who or who knows who, I liken it to kind of the one-way mirror or one-way glass, you know, like they use in police stations or something, where you can see, they can see through, but you can't see them. There's that kind of a relationship at time, depending on who's who. And there's also the two-way open window, and then there's some that can't see each other. So it really depends. And we try to do the mapping, and part of the goal of therapy is to get them all to see each other. But you know, but then there's always there's parts of me, there's all the bad side to it too,
Right.
all the hard parts of it that is right now the frustration is.
Right. It's a lot to manage. You have however many parts to take care of, and it's like literally like living with 13 roommates or 20 roommates or whatever.
Having a classroom.
And your responsibility is to make sure that everybody's needs gets met.
Well, and some of the needs are conflicting.
Right.
They're
Exactly. Whether
opposing.
it be, and sometimes they don't get it that there's only one body. There's only one body. You know, I had two parts that were hell bent on killing my father. You know, but they didn't understand that there was only one. There was only one body, and this part could not be performing this task to distract him, and the other part swoop in and take care of it. Like they don't get that. And then there's also,
or like going out, like adolescents being self-destructive, go out party, counselor telling you you're putting yourself in a really dangerous situation. Men can take advantage of this, that, whatever, because extremely dangerous. And that part doesn't feel it and doesn't care.
Right.
Well, we could die. I mean, like, and the other parts are back here going, no, that's our body too. And
Yeah.
they're like, there's no consideration for each other.
and the destruction to the body by the parts that self-mutilate or drink or use drugs or
Gamble.
They just don't quite get it because they don't feel the repercussions of that.
Right, they ditch.
Right,
They're out
gone.
of here.
They just bail, and somebody else comes in to clean up the mess. And it helped me survive torture. I mean, that's the bottom line. It has allowed me to grow into an adult where I don't think. I mean, there's a lot of people who haven't survived what I've been through, and it has allowed me to be a functional member of society as a teacher myself and raise two beautiful sons, and those things wouldn't have happened otherwise. They absolutely wouldn't have happened.
You know, triggers, it's hard to maintain. It's a good thing in terms of our ability to roll. I mean, we're extremely flexible. Throw any life problem at us and we'll deal with it. But you know, but then there's always there's parts of me, there's all the bad side to it too.
Right.
All the hard parts of it that is right now the frustration is.
Right.
I'm aware that some psychologists and psychiatrists don't believe that DID exists, that it's not real. Anybody has an open mind, and then they might be able to hear it. I don't think those people are open-minded. I think they're ignoring the research. The research is there. Dissociation and dissociative disorders are one of the earliest known psychiatric phenomena of all of them. Anyone, any psychiatrist or doctor I know that has actually had a patient with DID believes it. And it not.
I think that I would like them to know that it's not something glamorous that is fun to portray. It's not something that if you wanted to pretend that this existed, that you could even keep up with, because I will tell you, it is demanding. It is absolutely physically, emotionally, mentally, it's demanding. And it would be really, really, really nice to be able to say, joke's on you. Like, I would love to be able for those words to come out of my mouth like, haha, just kidding. Reality is it's not the case, and there are so many just like us out there that are afraid to receive treatment because of that stigma, and the media's portrayal of what DID is in the film and all of that is sensationalized, because nobody would watch it. If you were following us around,
you'd be bored to
you
death.
would be bored, because there are lots of times that I can switch in therapy that my therapist doesn't even pick up on it. We're good at it. We've been practicing a long time. And I just think, everybody is expecting this Sybil creature to come, this non-functioning. I am a highly intelligent, educated woman who has DID, and I function in the world every day, and DID lets me do that. My definition of a trigger is something that occurs, either physically occurs or you hear, maybe it's a word or a sound or a sensation that will send you into a past situation that you've been involved in, whether it is you yourself or another part that has been involved in. I have a lot of them. There are a lot of them. We all have a lot of them. Going to the doctor is a big trigger, and unfortunately we've had a lot of medical stuff go on. Simple things like starting to itch, something starts to itch, will trigger a part that was in the attic for a very long time with fleas, and it brings that part out. And one part will not go to sleep for surgery. We've had 35 major surgeries to the body, and she will not go to sleep. She lays there singing, and fortunately we have a cardiologist who has a sister who has DID and is well aware of that, and he sort of puts up with it, but it's really hard. It doesn't matter how much medicine we get, she will not go to sleep. Certain words, like I mentioned before, attic, barn, certain smells will, smells are really, really powerful. I would say even more powerful than they are to a woman who is having morning sickness. It's similar to that, but it's much more powerful, and it, unfortunately, it typically for us sends us to a really bad place. And there are not a lot of, we do not have a lot of really positive things that it triggers.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
So this is a photograph of, I believe, maybe kindergarten or first grade. I don't have any emotional connection to this picture. After my father, I know it's me. I mean, I know that, but after my father passed away in September, my brother, he took it down off the wall and handed it to me, and I don't have any emotion. It was just like somebody handing me a picture of someone else. I was not present during this time. There was a littler part that was present, enduring a lot of torture during this part of our life, and it's hard. It's hard to see pictures. It is especially hard for me to see pictures. I take a lot of value in. I take a lot of value in photographs, and to not have a connection with photos is very, very difficult for me. I know that it's me because I can feel somebody is like, that's me, and I know who that is.
You think
About what?
any alters appeared during the conversation at all?
Yeah. Have any alters appeared? Yeah.
Tell us about it. Safe.
I don't know what to say.
Who am I talking to?
That's a bad question. We hate that question. That is a really bad question.
I'd like to get to know people. It's interesting. I can understand why.
It feels really invasive. It feels like we don't have it all together. It feels, out of control a little bit.
Hence you ask for a break.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same thing for you, Jan?
Ta-da! You just witnessed it. You don't have to answer either. We have the right to not. Anything you say will and can be used against you.
Yeah, so sometimes I don't know if I can do it.
Okay. But that is, again, the commonalities and the bond that we all share in our group is that we recognize it, but we know the pain and the struggle of it because it's uncomfortable in a setting that you're not familiar with or people you're not comfortable with. Not that you're not. It's just, but it's a new situation that we see it and we understand how that feels. It's not it doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable. It's a stress. There's good stress, bad stress. Either way, without defining it, it's a stress to the body and it's a stress to the mind. And we get that. And that's why you see us get really protective of each other, I guess.